And today I'm gonna take a different angle on the process of using assessments as a coach, because the way I look at this is like the assessment tool and your ability to use it is like having the map that your client or that your group, that the team that you're leading, the map that your client needs to what I call authentic success. And ultimately, come back to that in a second, but really, what is coaching? I mean, coaching in a way, I mean, you might say a lot of things about what coaching is, but I always like to say coaching is whatever conversation that I, as your coach, can facilitate to support you in producing the results that you're after. If it's there to produce results for you and the results that you really value and that you feel are important, then great. That's coaching to me. Any conversation around that could be coaching. So it gives us a lot of flexibility as coaches within that definition. But also, there are many coaches that would argue. I know one of our staff, one of our faculty who runs one of our programs would probably say something similar to this, and I'll just read it off my notes here. Consider that coaching is helping your client discover where they want to be, like what they want, discover where they're at. So where they're at, what they want, and then ultimately how they'll get there, and then facilitate and support that journey. It's really what coaching in a lot of ways is. It's a discovery process initially. A lot of times, that's why like the first session a lot of coaches run with their new clients or new potential clients, they actually call them those sessions discovery sessions. They're helping a client discover where are they? Like, where are you at right now? Where are you in your life? Where are you in your business? What do you want? Like, or another way of saying that is, where do you want to be? So where are you? Where do you want to get to? Right, on this map. And then how are you going to get there? All right. So at first it's just kind of an inquiry, a discovery process, if you will. But eventually, once this is all clear for your client at the level of detail that's required for them to get where they want to go, then really you're just facilitating and having conversations that support them in filling that gap, of traversing that gap, of following the map, so to speak. So you think of it this way. I'll show you a little bit of a visual here that I happily prepared for you. So as I said, this is like the map, the authentic map to success for your clients. And again, this is the coaching process, right? We want to work with the client on them knowing where they are at, where they are, where they want to be, like their target, so to speak, and then how they're going to get there. What's the map, or what's the journey that they need to take in order to get there? And then we facilitate that process. We actually, we start with them here, and of course, then they figure out where they are, because a lot of clients don't even know where they are when they're starting. And then we're moving along this journey with them until they actually get where they want to go. And then we've brought them the value. Obviously, anything that supports them in ultimately getting there, even if we're not there when they actually arrive, is valuable to our client. So anything valuable to my client, I call that coaching. At least if it's a conversation between me and them, or something I can facilitate to them, or send them, or train them in. So think of using, the different tools that we might use as coaches as facilitating this map. And the tool that we're working on in assessment immersion training, of course, would be psychographic profiling tools, as I know our trainees are quite aware of at this point. And even if you don't understand what that is, or you've never seen these types of assessments before, continue to look at this for two purposes. The first one is the potential to actually have a tool that could accelerate your coaching, to actually facilitate this, because that's exactly what I'm promising you. And then secondly, even without the tools, or without knowing what the tools are, if you can get the concept of this and see how it might work, then ultimately it may lead you, it may give you the impetus to actually explore more. I was just sent some tools a couple weeks ago. I think I even talked about this in the orientation week live stream. I can't remember. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. You never know. But somebody sent me a tool, and I was like, well, that's cute, and so what? But then he demonstrated it for me. He showed me this is what you could do with it. Think of all the possibilities. Then I got intrigued, and now I'm actually probably going to purchase the tool. I'm going to get the tool and use it within my business. And it's going to transform my business as a result, or maybe it will. Let's put it that way. So what gave me access to transformation was seeing the concept and the possibility. So even if you don't know these tools, use this as a way to drive the possibility for you. You know, because you may not have access to something because you don't even know that it's a possibility that's not available to you yet, but it could be. So that's the purpose of this conversation for you if you're not in training with us right now. So anyway, point being, this is like think of this is a map, and as coaches, we facilitate the discovery and traversing of this map, and the assessments, the psychographic assessment profiling tools. Well, you know, they can also help us to facilitate and accelerate our facilitation of this map. And the metaphor that I would offer you is, think about this way. When you're coaching a client with no assessment, with no psychographic basis for that already, like you've got to figure it all out from day one, from square one. You got to ask all the questions. You got to, you know, meander around with your client, just feeling around. That's like, it's like being a blind man in a dark room, you know, feeling your way around the room. Like you can find your way out, maybe you'll get where you want to go, but it's kind of a ridiculous process, you know, and it's kind of pathetic in a way, right? Now, by the way, nothing like, look, if you're blind, you're blind, you know, maybe there's nothing you can do about that, but anybody who's in that situation, usually they realize, they know, gosh, wouldn't it be better if I could see? Wouldn't it transform things for me? Wouldn't it accelerate my progress? And you can argue and reframe that and say, well, no, it's not. It's better to be blind, and that's fine. You can keep your head in the sand then. But the point of this is, when I add a psychographic profile to my coaching process, it changes my coaching from just feeling my way around this, trying to hunt for questions and get answers from my client on this, to like 20/20 vision, turning bright lights on in the room. And immediately I can see the door, and I can get that client out of that room, out of that box that they've been trapped in, so to speak, because the lights are on and I can see in 20/20 all of a sudden. You can imagine how much of a difference that makes. This is what my coach, Robert Alderman, used to tell me. He's like, that's the difference here. So this is really kind of like the model I wanted to offer you initially. So let me ask you some really critical questions here. First thing, this map, where your client's at, where they want to be, and how to get there, the path, the gap, the strategy, etc. Is this map usually available to most people? Is this map usually available to most people in their life? Is this map usually available to most business owners or professionals or executives? This map, where they are, where they really are, where they want to be, and then actually how to get there, how to close the gap, how to traverse this chasm between where they are and where they want to be. Is that most of the time available? The answer is no. Usually this is not something that is available to most people. Most people are, this is the way I would say it. Can you read this if I write this really low? Yeah, I guess you can. Most people are lost, right? You find somebody on the street that you don't know. 9 times out of 10, you can just have a short conversation with them where they discuss with you where they're at in their life or business, where they want to be in their life or their business, and how to get there. And I can almost guarantee you, most of the time, they will be lost in one or more of these areas. And by the way, if you're lost in one of these areas, you might as well be lost in all of them. I'm not saying, I mean, it's great if you're not lost in all of them, right? But what if you know what you want and how to get there, but you really don't know where you are? You'll never get what you want then, because you don't know your starting place. In fact, consider this. If you really don't know where you are, you really don't know how to get there either. Because just because you know this is one pathway to success for you, what if you're over here? If you take this pathway over here, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up over here. Right? So consider, if you don't know either, one of these two, you don't know this one either. If you don't know where you are, you don't know how to get there anyway. Even if you have some ideas on how some people, all you know really is how other people have gotten there in the past. You're lost in both of those areas. Now, some people know where they want to be, where they are, but they don't know how to get there. They're lost in that area. Now, there's plenty of people, you life purpose coaches, you know what I'm talking about. It's plenty of people that they know where they are, and they know all sorts of maps to get to like where people want to be, but they really don't know what they want. It's like, I don't have any goals, or I don't really know where I want to be, and it's like I don't really know to fulfill me in my life, or even if I want to be fulfilled. Some people flat out, like, maybe they don't know, but it's almost like they don't want to be fulfilled. They operate like that. I've had plenty of clients like that. It's like, I don't really want to be happy. I don't really want to be fulfilled. I'm really not looking for that. It's not that they're not, it's just that they're lost in what that is, or they're lost in whether they could ever get there. And so this map, it is not available to most people that you'll meet. It's not available to most of your coaching clients, for that matter. So is this map available? No, people are lost. That's the message. That's a happy message for today in terms of that first question. Okay, I'm going to ask you the second question, second key question to this whole idea of the map to authentic success here. Authentic map to success, map to authentic success, same thing. So let's say they know now, they know this is available to them. They know these things. If this is available to your client or to people in your life, is that map generally going to be authentic? Is it generally going to be like accurate? Think about it that way. Again, they think they know this stuff, but the fact is, the answer here is no as well. Generally speaking, again, I mean, 9 times out of 10, if people that you ask, hey, where are you? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there? And then like talk a good game, most of the time they have no clue about at least one of these things. And like I said, if they don't have a clue about one of them, they really don't have a clue about any of them. So like most people in life won't even act like they know this stuff, and you can tell 9 times out of 10. For the 1 out of 10 that actually says, well, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, this is my path to get there, it's like, that's actually not where they're at, or actually not really where they want to be. Like, they're just acting it out like they know those things. They've learned to BS themselves. They've learned to be inauthentic about this stuff, which, we all are to some extent, I suppose. And I'm not saying they're totally lost, but they've created kind of this inauthentic veneer, right? This mask of having it all together. And by the way, they probably benefit from that to some extent. People are like, wow, this person really knows where they're going, and they probably follow that person. These are like the leaders in our society, right? They act a good game a lot of times, really don't have an authentic sense of this stuff. It's usually not very accurate, or it's maybe somewhat accurate. It's like 50-50 at best, right? So if we know, the fact is that people are mostly lost when it comes to where they are, what they want, and how to get there. And even if they say they do, it's probably not authentic. We want to, as coaches, turn the light on. We want to shine a light on all these points. That's your job in a big way. And then ultimately, once this is, this is on, it's authentic, it's clear, to facilitate that journey, which is, usually people get off track in the journey. They like this direction, and they didn't realize they had to make that left turn, or they knew it, but they didn't want to. And they just kind of keep going, and they end up here, right? And you got to keep them on that authentic course to get them where they need to be, not just where they like feel like going today, right? So your job is to make it so they're not so lost, shine a light on this, and make sure that it's authentic, that's not just something that they're faking. That's your job as the coach. And you're supposed to do that all alone with no tools and no support and no empirically validated models. You know, that to me sounds like a tough one, especially considering that what about the rest of the people in this client's life? Do you think they help this person find their authentic map to success? For the most part, no. And that wasn't even a question I was thinking about asking, but really think about it. Like the people in your life, the people in your clients' lives, people in, the peer group around most people, they're not really there to support them in finding their authentic self, figuring out where they authentically really care to go in life, and then support them in getting there. Most people around them are probably trying to figure this out for themselves and probably trying to leverage your client into helping them with their journey. And guess what? Is most of the time when those people are really in it for themselves and trying to get something from your client, or trying to kind of meander your client towards where they want your client to be, you think that helps and supports your client in this authentic map to success? Probably not. And by the way, I'm not putting that on your client's peer group. It's not like your friend's job or your family's job to like have you figure this out. Be nice if they would for once, right? They're nice if they like facilitated this journey for you. But it's like even look, how many of our parents set us up for this even when we were young, and it was like their job to like keep us safe and take care of us and everything? Like how many parents did this for us? I mean, very few. There are a few, maybe. But most of the time, it's the parents' idea of where they think you should be, where they think you want to go. They're not like, a lot of times they're not even asking you. They're just like, well, you're going to be a doctor. This is the way you're going to be. You're going to go to this school. This is the kind of person you are, right? And then we're like given this map that's not authentic for us at all, right? So if our own parents aren't going to do that for us, and they like love us to heck and back, like what makes you think like your current family, friends, business associates, boss, clients, like what makes you think they're going to support this? I mean, that it's going to be a cold day in hell before that happens, right? And by the way, if you as the coach don't have a tool that helps you to shine a light on this, and you're meandering around taking months and months and months to kind of figure it out, and your clients got all these other people around them, right? Family, friends, business associates, clients, etc., that are like yanking them into this inauthentic version of this map, like a fake map. You gonna win? Are you gonna win that tug of war? We already know that unless you have a tremendous marketing arm behind you, unless you're Tony Robbins, unless you're Eckhart Tolle, unless you're, unless you already have them worshiping you and you're like the guru, you're not going to win that tug of war. Like that peer group is gonna, because you're one person and there's like hundreds of them probably. Now again, can you be more effective? Can you improve your skill set and your influence? Can you be better at discovering this without a tool? Absolutely, and you should, and you want to, and that's why we have more than assessment immersion training. That's why we have strategy and accountability training. Accountability gets them moving on this journey. Strategy is about discovering what that journey should be, as well as diagnosing where they really are at. But that's a tough discipline. And so assessments are about making this easy. I mean, I know people that don't know crap about great strategy coaching, but they use these tools and they can figure this out. That gives them a huge leg up. You don't want to be lost in the shuffle there. So the point I'm making with this is the deck is stacked against your client, and frankly, the deck is stacked against you without tools that are valid, that you can count on, and that are actually transmissible to your client in a way where they're going to buy into this. So use assessments to tell you how to help your client discover where they are, where they want to be, and how they'll get there. This is what turning the light on is. when you use assessments to help diagnose and then coach your client, you have more precise information, more accurate diagnosis, i.e. authentic, and more buy-in from your client. Why would you get more buy-in from your client? Because you're using something empirically validated. They're not just like, well, you're an amazing coach, everything you say must be true. It's like, no, this is used by the Fortune 500 and the government. This is empirically validated in wide array of different statistical analysis and studies. Here's the face validation tools that we use. It's like, you've got proof right there. And by the way, a lot of times when people just read these results, they're like, yeah, that's totally me. I know even in a assessment training right now, I know this week 2 training, which I know we're doing the week 1 live stream right now, but hear me out. You know, a couple of our students were like, wow, I read this just for myself. I went through this just for me, and I'm like blown away. This is like, they've got me to a T, you know? So people, a lot of times when they hear the truth, they can tell like what's authentic. Just there's a different feeling about it, right? There's a different view of it. So hope that makes sense. And by the way, if there's anything you have an argument about here, then anything that you have questions about or that doesn't make sense about this, please hit me up in the chat. But let me know what you're thinking about this too. I really want your feedback, and I thrive on that, not just because I need your validation, but because it helps me get a sense of what I also need to cover as we talk through these live streams. So it's not meant to just be a monologue here, although I have plenty of that for you. So when you use these assessments to help you diagnose and then coach your client, you have more precise info, more accurate diagnosis, more buy-in, not to mention a common language to speak so they understand the value. Because when I can show you a graph and you understand what the graph means, you understand the language of that graph, we now have a common language that we share. And we can get on the same page in a way that where we have a common understanding. When I go to Japan, I can't speak Japanese. You know, it's like it's harder for me to get on the same page with somebody, much harder than if we just have the common language that we speak, right? And so most people are not grounded in the language of authentic discovery of where you are. Most people are not grounded in the language of psychographic understanding as a behavioral tendencies, value sets, thinking patterns. People are not grounded in that language. People are not grounded in the language of desire and valuation, which is really what people want. And people are not grounded in the strategic discussion either, and variation around how to get where you want to go. So when you start to teach them this language, you literally teach your client this language. Now they can discuss this with you in a way where there's facility for them. Language gives you access to distinctions, and those distinctions give you access to views and understandings and tools that are not available to those that don't have the language. So where was I here? So anyway, yeah, we talked about that. So I'll give you an example. And I wrote out a little bit on my graph here. It's a little bit about using the map. So I was definitely not authentic in my success early on in my, success journey, I guess. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I was. I knew a little bit about how to get there, right? So I had studied with Tony Robbins. I'd worked for him as coach, and I was still pretty lost. And for obvious reasons, I was lost because I didn't really understand what was going to have me really fulfilled and happy and have true authentic success for myself. And I didn't understand where I was because I didn't understand myself. I didn't know myself. When I first started coaching, I went to work for Tony Robbins. I just thought, well, if I just go to work for this guy, I can be like him. I'm just going to be like that guy. That's just who I'll be. Because, he's just a guy, and, I'm a guy too. And I could just, I knew a bunch of NLP, and at the time I understood modeling. I'm just okay, just copy success, right? And I'll just be that. I'll have that level of success. It'll be great. And I'll be really happy and fulfilled. And what I discovered very early on in that process, after I left working with him, was that, well, I'm not that guy. I'm not anything like Tony Robbins. And because I was very busily trying to fake my way through that. I didn't understand that it was faking at the time. I thought it was just copying and becoming who I was destined to become. And, I worked and worked and worked at that. And, like I wasn't getting the same results, right? And I started scratching my head, like, why am I not getting the same results? And then luckily my coach at the time, Robert Alderman, he pointed out to me, look, you don't have the same D as Tony does. Like Robert actually ran Tony's assessment results, right? And he knew what Tony was like. And so he said, look, Tony's 100 D, 100 I. You're like really low D. That's low dominance. And so you're not a trainer type, and you're trying to be one. Like you're trying to go out there, do all these speeches and do all these trainings, transform people, like all this song and dance and everything like Tony does. But Tony dominates the room when he sucks all the oxygen out of the room, and all the power goes to him. He's just this, and not to mention he's like, 6'8" or something like that, so he's this towering presence, right? And so like, look, you're not dominant. Like you're not passive, but you're more of a go with the flow type of guy. And so I remember trying to be Tony Robbins, and I walked into one of the largest software companies in Southern California at the time. I can't even remember the name of it or what they did, but I met with the entire executive team. I had this huge opportunity. One of my clients got me in. She said, look, I'm the VP of marketing for this business. I want to get you into this business because you can really transform these guys. Because I was a really amazing coach for her. And so I got in there and I started like showing them all these slides and talking about how we were going to like literally I basically showed them that same map. I was like, we're going to help you get where you want to go. And the CFO stood up and said, this isn't for me. I'm out of here. And he just left. And I was just crushed. I was like, okay, well, I mean, will you guys just listen to me for a second? And I just totally lost it. I finished the presentation, we did best I could, right? But I was not the trainer type. I wasn't dominating that group. That just wasn't me. I was trying to be somebody, I was not. So I didn't know where I was. I didn't know really who I was. I didn't have an authentic sense of that. And also for that matter, I thought I'm going to make all this financial success, and that's really like going to be amazing. I'm going to have this business like Tony Robbins did. And guess what? You looked at my values. I mean, this is my disc. So this is like kind of like how you naturally behave. So D is just one aspect of it, which is dominance, goal orientation, kind of more of a get on with it, take charge type of person who just kind of, they handle challenge and confrontation very comfortably. It's not a big deal for them. They just kind of like they kick themselves into action. If you ever seen a D, you'll see somebody who, if there's a problem, they get very intense very quickly. Usually it looks like anger. We say the emotion of a D is anger. It doesn't mean that you feel anger, but you have a certain punch to you. And I was in that meeting and I had no punch at all, right? Like the executives had a punch. I didn't. Okay. So, but anyway, coming back to this, I thought I was going to have this amazing business. And I learned when I looked at my values profile that my economic values are actually very low. Like I cared very little about cash flow and profitability and ROI and that kind of thing. So, it was necessary that I had some type of business in order to convey the difference I really wanted to make in the world. I didn't write this down, but one of my values that was very high at the time, and it still is, was they call this altruistic now. And mine was very high. Let's put it that way. And so my whole thing was about contribution. And I just knew that, hey, Tony had a business, so I was going to have a business as well. And I learned from just looking at my values graph, yeah, I want to make a contribution, but like economically, like I don't really care about that stuff. So it really gave me this amazing lesson that I needed to change my approach emotionally to how I run a business. I have to care about money more. I have to change my money orientation. Well, so I'm not going to have a very successful business because businesses actually die without money, and when they have a lot of money, they tend to thrive. And not always, but that's definitely a tendency, right? So I had to change my money orientation there. So here I had to understand this is just not me. I need to have a different approach to making a difference in the world. And so instead of doing all these trainings and doing, all the speaking that Tony Robbins was doing, I went online and I wrote, and we have this huge, one of the most successful blogs on the subjects that I write about and my team writes about in the world. It gets like thousands of hits every month. And it's a big part of why our business is successful. And then but on this end, on the values end, I thought I was going to make such a huge difference, but I wasn't, even though I wanted to. My economics weren't valuable enough for me. So I actually had to make a change in my values. If you look at my values now, my economics is actually way higher. You want to take somebody who's like really, really idealistic, young and idealistic like myself, who doesn't care about money, and have them like try to make a difference as a social entrepreneur. They didn't have social entrepreneurship at the time, but I think that's what I wanted to be. And, take them through a decade of having these kind of values. These values will change if they survive. And so a lot of people won't change their values, and that's the end of them in that role. But I actually changed my economic orientation, and now I have a successful business as a result. So not only did I not know where I was at, I didn't understand what I really wanted and what I needed to want in order to get what I wanted. And besides that, I was actually, one of my huge strengths was I was very, very detail oriented. Like the C is the detail orientation. I actually had it very, very high. And I was high theoretical. I really appreciated knowledge, and I was just like a sponge soaking up knowledge. And so I was actually a really highly organized systems thinker. So I've helped to organize and systemize, many businesses. If we're looking at coaching businesses, hundreds of them, and I look at businesses outside of coaching, probably in the realm of 50 to 100 of them. With clients I've worked with, just family and friends that I connect to, I help them systemize their businesses without even trying, because I'm very detail oriented and very knowledgeable. Right? So these things come together for a strength for me. So I didn't understand that at the time. I mean, this was not originally like a strength because I didn't have the skill set, but I still had the tendencies that allowed me to garner that skill set over a period of a decade. Right? So I became that over time. So the point of all this is simple, is that I did not have the map to where I was, where I really wanted to be, because I thought I knew who I was. I thought I knew where I was going or where I wanted to go. And I thought I knew what it was going to take to get there, but I didn't know any of that. When I had my assessment results and I had a coach that supported me in reading them, I started to get straight on who I really was, where I really wanted to go, and how I needed to alter that in order to get where I wanted to go. And then ultimately the map to get me where I wanted to go. Now, this is a never-ending journey. Obviously, when you get where you want to go, you ultimately then have somewhere else that you want to go a lot of times. So it's a moving target, right? It's a mountain that has no top. But the point of the matter is that even myself, having been so well educated at the time, like I didn't have a clue. I was lucky enough to have this technology available to me. And my coaching for you is that you need to utilize this in this way. You need to utilize this for yourself. You need to utilize this for your team. And you need to utilize this for your clients, because it can accelerate you understanding these. Let me give you one example from a recent client that I've been working with. Chris came to me because he was struggling to kind of get where he wanted to go in his business. And now some of that came from the recent pandemic, but some of it came from what we discovered when he sent me his assessment information. So this is the map in action, if you will. So, and I actually drew you the map here. Chris was kind of dabbling with results when we got together. He had several different businesses. He was kind of dabbling with a lot of different things, not really committed to any of them. And the way I could tell that, other than what he shared with me, was that he was his highest value was something we call individualistic, which is basically the value of freedom. And he also was, was very was very, very low in persistence and detail orientation. So he kind of skate along the surface of his businesses and then get bored, and then his freedom value would drive him to go do something else. And so he was just dabbling. That's where he was. Now, did he know that before we started? I had my discovery session with him. No, he didn't. I maybe had a clue about it, but like he really got clear about that once I saw his graph and I explained to him what I saw. I was like, look, you're just skating on the surface of your business. You're not really going deep. You're not really building a business here. You're just opportunistically trying different things to see what'll work. And then you go try something else, try something else, try something else. You're never really going to get anywhere doing that. And especially you're not going to get where you want to go. Where he wanted to be was he wanted to retire with $200,000 in passive income, $200,000 annual passive income, right? That's what he told me. And I think he was fairly clear about that. And there were things that actually contributed to that were totally authentic for him, which was he's fairly high economic. He was economically driven, but he also felt that this passive income would give him freedom, which was what we were talking about just a second ago. So we had a sense of where he wanted to be, but he just didn't really know where he was coming from, right? So I could help him connect these dots with why he wanted to be where he wanted to be and why he wasn't actually on his way there because of where he was, that he didn't know where he was. He was lost in that respect. So from looking at this, my coaching for him was, look, since you're just dabbling with a bunch of different businesses, you're never going to get here because this doesn't happen without building up a real woodshed full of, like a nest egg full of cash and assets. And that takes a deep dive journey into a long-term business and you're not up for that really, because look at your freedom value. Like that's not going to set you free. You're going to be kind of in prison of your business for a while. So if you really want to get here, which he did, you're going to have to put your freedom on hold. You really want to get freedom, you're going to have to put that on hold for about 8 years, which is his plan, actually, to get the ultimate freedom. So isn't that odd? The very value that pushed him to want this goal is the very thing he's got to put off. He's got to put off that instant gratification in order to ultimately be able to traverse that journey to get the freedom that he wanted. Now, tell me a coach who would unravel that for him without these graphs. I know I wouldn't. With all my skill set and my background, I mean, maybe I would have been to like perceive that just because of the people I've worked with where I've seen this kind of graph. I don't know. Might have been able to think about that distinction, which you can. I mean, that's possible. It's not probable, though. It's not likely. So, and then second, he was very low detail orientation. Like his C was much lower than mine, or is much lower than mine. And so my second coaching for him, and this was actually fairly recently, was you got to hire the detail work. Like you're never going to do all the details in your business. You got to hire that out. And you've got to go be the crusader who's going to go out there and conquer new land to grow the business and get the cash in. And then you can use some of that cash to hire the detail out so that the detail's handled. And so that became his map. Now we're going to get more detail with that obviously as we go, but this freedom piece governs all of this. This is one of his biggest issues in his entire life and his entire business. And then how he shows up, like where he really is, like that's dominating his business too. So those of you in immersion training, listen closely to this. If you want your client to know where they're at, that is an amalgamation of their disc, of their behavioral profile, because that's where they are. That's just their DNA, so to speak. It's how they act day to day. And the beliefs, that you can intuit or that you can extrapolate from their value assessment. So their beliefs and behaviors, that tells us where your client is. They believe these things, that's going to put them in a certain position in life. They behave in a certain way, their knee-jerk instinctual reactions to things, that's going to put them in a very specific position in their life, their business, their career, their relationships, etc. I want to know where you are. I just got to look at this and I got to extrapolate beliefs from your different value set, because there are beliefs that generally go along with very specific values that are very high or very low. Like, I know somebody who's got a really low regulatory belief, like Chris does, like he doesn't want to have to do all these systems work. His belief is, like rules are just there for me to break, something like that, right? So if I know those beliefs in general, again, I can intuit and extrapolate those, I have a sense of where that client is already. Make sense? So this is what you're extrapolating in order to figure out where your client is. Now, how do you know where they want to be? How do you know where they want to be without them even telling you their goal? And by the way, even if they tell you their goal, it doesn't mean that's their goal. Maybe they just like to talk about that and they really have some other goal. Remember, authentic is what we're looking for. We want to know authentically where they're at, not just where do they posture and position that they're at. We want to know authentically where do they want to be, not just what are the things that their peer group has accepted as to where they're supposedly going to go. We want to know where they really authentically want to be. And so how I know where they authentically want to be, I just look at their values. Whatever their most important values are, that's the destination they want. Now, I don't know necessarily how they organize that. I just know what they want to feel, so to speak. They want to feel freedom. They want economics is, in a way, a kind of a measurable goal. But usually these are a little esoteric. But I have a sense of where they really want to be. So think of that as like the target that they have is their values. And then everything informs on how they're going to get there. Because if we know that where they are and where they want to be, this is what they have available to them: their drives, their values, their belief systems, and their behavioral style on how they'll knee-jerk approach getting where they want to go. That's it. So I can actually get a really good sense of the entire map to success. Where are you? Where do you want to be? And how to get there from just these two graphs. Now, we can have more than that, obviously. We're going to ask some questions to follow up. But do you get the idea with this? Is this making sense? Like, this actually informs on the very map that most clients are going to expect from you as a coach. So this just accelerates your ability to pound that out in the first and second session without necessarily having to spend 10 hours interrogating them or having some magic question that you're lucky enough to figure out to ask. You should still be great with your questions. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but this accelerates the process tremendously without you having to perform perfectly. So here's the actions I would suggest you take. I don't think there's anything else. Okay, great. Here's the actions I'm going to advise you to take out of this. The point of all of this was you can help your client find the authentic map to success through some simple graphs that we can provide by you sending that to your client, getting the results, and understanding what they mean. Now I can know where my client is really authentically, not just where they posture and where they like to act like they are, where they really want to be, not just what they've been told they should want, and what it's really going to take for them to get there. And I can have a real come to Jesus with my client very quickly just by having this on the first session or once they sign up for coaching, once I've run this graph on them. That's what it gives me. Just imagine what that could offer to a client or to you as the coach in your business. By the way, what if you were to do this with a team or a family or a relationship or a partnership? If you were to run, we call them wheels, where we actually plot multiple values, multiple behaviors on one graph. Like, if we knew most people in a particular company really want power, but none of them want to follow the rules or none of them really care about money, can you imagine like the difference in like how that's gonna change where they want to go and how they're ultimately going to need to get there? I mean, that's a radical advantage in terms of you coaching a team or a business to understand the culture that you're walking into, even if they're not acting like that's the culture. You'll see hidden cultural divides or hidden kind of authentic aspects of the desires and behaviors of that culture that haven't been discussed for decades, maybe. You'll see the elephants in the room just like that in a team. So like, this is what this gives you access to. And this is how you can line it up, in general, at least. Make sense? Okay. So here's the actions we're going to ask you to take. Now I'm going to get to the actions. All right. So number one, look at your client's graphs. When you look at your client's graphs, bring them out, look at them. Or you could do this with yourself. You just look at your own graphs, okay, and look at the DISC results, which is your behavioral style, and the beliefs that you can naturally expect would come from the value sets that you see that are really high and really low. Like really low regulatory, it's like, I hate rules, rules are a prison, right? That's probably a belief. Really low economic is like money is the root of all evil, right? Or the love of money, right? So they're like there's these kind of typical beliefs that would go along with low and high value. Like high economic is like money is power, right? High, like mine was theoretical. High theoretical, knowledge is power, right? Those are just typical beliefs. So look at your graph or look at your client's graphs and take the beliefs that you can extrapolate from their values and their behavioral styles, and then that's where they are. Like write down or think about, like, where does that tell me about where that client is at? Like where they actually are in the map of success for them. Next, third, look at their values specifically. Their values tell you where they want to be. And so think about, okay, knowing what's highest and lowest, like where do they really want to be and where do they not want to be? Are there some values that are really low where they actually want to kind of like, they're repulsed from that particular thing that most of the world actually appreciates? So where do they want to be and where do they not want to be? That's all values. You need to look right in the values assessment. I know, like this guy wants freedom. Somebody who's economic is through the roof. They want, money and time and maximize their life. Like we know what they want. Like that's really what their goals, basically. And finally, fourth, look at all of it and ask yourself, okay, from what I know about their natural and adapted DISC and their values and motivators, like how could they best get where I know they want to go? What's the solution or the map or the trajectory that client needs to take in order to ultimately hit their target, to achieve the success that they authentically want, not just the success that they say they want? And that is your map to authentic success. Hope that makes sense. Look, if you got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on the chat for the next day or so, and I'll answer them there. I hope you got some value out of this conversation here. And if you don't have access to these assessments, just hit me up and we'll talk about getting a license for you. If you're in the training, you got your assignment from this one. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just really think about a map for each of your clients that you're working with. I mean, I know we're giving you like really detailed like outlines and scripts and flowcharts and approaches for coaching these guys. But I really want you to get a simplistic approach of like, just like literally like draw a map and like, this is where they're at and just write a few things. And this is where they want to be and write a few things. And then write like an arrow between them and, write down, what do you see as the map? I mean, you could do it in like a one pager, right? And just get your own sense without them even there. And you could bring that to the next session and share it with them, or just keep it in your back pocket and say, I know this about this client, or I think I know this. And I'm going to ask questions and position conversations against that assumption so I can get a sense as to whether or not I'm right. Like, do I, like how close am I? And I think what you're going to find is that you get tremendous rapport and you add tremendous value to your client when you've done this homework ahead of your sessions with them, even beyond all the other blueprints we give you. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do if you're in training with us. One last piece before we go. I know that this is something that most people, like I said, miss out on in their life or their business or their career or their relationships. And it is really the basis of a lot of emotional and spiritual suffering for people. There's a lot of people out there in the wrong job, wrong relationship, wrong life, right? They got their ladder against the wrong wall. And I need you as my partner to use these tools with your clients and with the world to correct that, to make it right and to make a difference there. But more so, I know there's other leaders like you out there, maybe not exactly like you, but like people that want to be like you, right? There's other leaders, other coaches that you know, or maybe they're just individuals that run a business. They have a team, and they're not like they don't think like this. They don't have this impetus, but they need to know this stuff so they can make a difference for their people, so they can win also. So they create a win-win in a business. And my humble request to you is to share this with people that you know need to hear it. Share this with your fellow leaders, coaches, change makers, business owners, people that have like really they have the power and the access to make a difference for people, but maybe they just don't have these tools yet. Maybe they just don't have these distinctions. And I know that if you do that, we're going to reach people that we never would have reached if it wasn't for you. You're the doorway through which they can find access, if you will, to these techniques and these approaches. I know it'll transform the world if we do this enough. And so I'm really appreciative if you can find a way to do that. And if nothing else, if you can hit a like wherever you're at, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is, that tells the algorithm that this actually did add some value for you. And it'll bring more of this to you because they know what you like then, which is just a great way for you to serve yourself. But on top of that, they understand who else out there needs to see this because they know that you got value. They'll provide it to somebody else as well. That'll make a difference for them, me, and hopefully you, because they're somebody that's probably in some way connected to you eventually. And let me know how this makes a difference for you down the road. And I look forward to seeing you and working with you in our next live stream in week 2 of Assessment Immersion Training. Take care until then.